What happens when love and music intertwine? Find out in Lee Adams' newest release, Love on Tour. Set against the backdrop of a thrilling concert tour, this story explores passion, heartbreak, and finding your true melody. Perfect for anyone who believes in second chances and unforgettable moments. Don't miss out. Pre-order your copy at leeadamsbooks.com today and be part of the story that will rock your world.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch affairs.
It's probably the least sexy part of the organizing. That's okay. No. The truth is.
So imagine tucking your kids in at night and realizing they don't have a bed to sleep in. No mattress, no blankets, just a pile of clothes on the floor. That moment changed everything for today's guest, Luke Mickelson. What started in 2012 as a simple project in his garage has exploded into a global movement. Luke walked away from a successful 18-year career to build beds, literally, for children who didn't have one. Fast forward to today, and his nonprofit, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, has built beds for well over 250,000 kids. I'm going to say he's probably getting close to 300,000 now across 4 countries with more than 550,000 volunteer hours fueling the mission. Named one of CNN's top 10 heroes, featured on NBC, PBS, TEDx, and the man, Mike Rowe's The Way I Heard It with Mike Rowe. Luke's not just building furniture, he's building hope, dignity, and connection in communities around the world. If you think one person can't make a difference, Luke's story is going to change your mind. And Luke, I have to thank you right away because I'm president of the Lions Club here and Leo Club advisor, and we did a bed build with our local chapter, and the kids, because that's what the Leos are, kids between the ages of 12 and 18, got so much out of it, learned so much. And, of course, the adults, us Lions, some of the Lions were inside helping with the bed build. Me and a couple others decided, let's bring food and grill for everybody. And it started a trend. And then when, Karen stepped away, we stopped doing it. But, oh, my God, the stuff that we learned. So I got to thank you for that, because if you wouldn't have started this, we wouldn't have been doing that.
Oh, wow. Well, Rich, thank you for the intro. That was amazing. Wow. I'm inspired. I'm inspired by your intro. No, it's an honor, right? Yeah. It's funny, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's a lot of things and variables that went into why Sleep in Heavenly Peace started. But one of the big ones was wanting my own children to enjoy the fruits of service and the joy that comes from that, as well as appreciate what they have. So anytime I hear stories of children being involved with builds, feeling the impact, seeing their own friends sometimes on the conditions that they sleep in, and hopefully that teaches them a lesson of joy of service, as well as appreciate what they have, and then reaching out and helping others. And so when I hear those kinds of stories about the kids, man, it's just hits right home. So,
it's awesome. And I know my one buddy who's in the club, Dynamo, he always went the night before to help, I guess, cut all the wood and everything. And it's funny, but it's not funny. It's like when the local chapter here folded, it's like it took a piece of his heart with him.
Oh, shoot.
And now that it's back up and running again,
yeah,
it's like his heart's fulfilled. He's like, yeah, we got to go do them again. We got to go do them again. I said, brother, I'm with you, man.
Do it.
whenever you're ready, I am ready. And actually, I want to, before we get into Sleep in Heavenly Peace, I got to ask you, what was your career before this?
So I was, and this might shock you, as an outside salesman. Yeah,
okay.
It's funny. It's because I like to talk. I love meeting new people, and
right.
I feel like I can read people pretty good, get them relaxed, and so sales was an easy door for me, and I loved it. Right, when I was growing up, I'm from a really small town, right? And I tell everybody,
right,
if you're from a small town, I mean, I graduated with 69 people. I mean, that was it. And so it's
wow, that is small.
It is small, and if you know how to pick up a ball and throw it relatively in the right direction, you had to play sports. So here I was, in this small town playing sports with my friends. Everybody in town, everybody in your school, and I was student body vice president, then student body president. I just was really active. And my mom, I kid around my mom. I'm raised by a single mom, and of course we didn't have much, right? She actually was the secretary. This is funny. She was the secretary for the elementary principal, right? So if you thought I could get away with anything, heck no. He was right down there. And then I kid you not, the minute I went to high school, and again, it was a small school, right? She gets promoted. I swear this was on purpose. She gets promoted to be the secretary of the superintendent. And I bet you can guess where her office was. It was right in the high school. I mean, there's no such thing as me ditching school. I mean, I'd be sick and parents come to my mom, is Luke okay today? And if I wasn't at school, oh man, I love my mom, but man, she had me down. She had me down.
She didn't follow you to college, did she?
Gosh, no.
Okay. So what actually made you get into sales?
Mom, she's good, and my mom is always. I mean, single mom. She's amazing. Like, I played all the sports, right? Every single sport that's available. In fact, I kid around. There was 2 weeks of the entire year that I didn't either have a game or practice. Now, if you think about that, I mean, some of these parents nowadays, and I have kids that some play a little bit of sports, and that's it.
Right.
So, and you're busy. And, here's my mom, 5 kids by herself. And I don't think she missed a game. She came to every single one of the games. And so, I'm a mama's boy. I got a real soft heart for my mom, and she's, and I'm grateful.
Nothing wrong with that, brother. Nothing wrong with that.
She's the one that really inspired and got me enjoying, the joy of serving others. And, there was one time at Christmas, I can't remember how old I was, probably 7 or 8. I remember the old Walkmans. Remember the Walkmans?
Oh yeah,
came out. And they had the 4-second delay, so you could go walking without skipping. It was really interesting, and I wanted one so bad. But there's no way my mom could afford it. Well, one day she went out to check the mail, and in the mailbox there was a stack of cash, $1,500.
What?
That the neighbors and the friends gave my mom to help us kids out. So I got my Walkman. I mean, it was just, those kinds of things, you don't hear about those as often, or certainly not as loud as some of the, the other Spitfire, stuff that we hear in social media. Those kinds of things are really stick to people. That always stuck with me. And I always kind of like from then on, I'm like, you know what? Wow. Someone did that for us. I thought about all the things that, their kids missed out on because they helped us. I was like, you know what? I want to be that kind of guy. I want to be that guy that wants to give back and help. And like my mom was teaching me. And so, living in a small town and with a single mom, 5 siblings, learning how to serve and give back to others. And trust me, there was a lot of opportunities to do that. It was awesome. I loved it.
Holy cow. That, what, but I guess that's one of the benefits of such a small town is everybody's looking out for each other, which is good. And you don't see that a lot today.
No, you don't. There's too much social media, too much phones and screens, and, they just don't get together. I mean, we didn't have computers. I mean, you did, but you never messed with them, right? We were always getting in trouble, running around and going hunting and fishing and, doing what young kids back then shouldn't be doing, but it was fun. You build story.
That was real socializing.
Amen, brother. Amen. And I feel bad for my kids. We're pretty strict in our home about screen time and stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much good out there, and Sleep in Heavenly Peace kind of started with that in mind, when I was in 2012, when Sleep in Heavenly started, I was what was called a young men's president, which is in my church, kind of like a youth pastor.
Yeah, okay.
I wasn't a youth pastor, but I was responsible for the spiritual growth as well as the activity arm of the young men's program, ages 12 to 18. And
okay.
And Wednesday night, we called it mutual night, but Wednesday night was the night where we did the activities. And at the time, the activity arm of the church was the Boy Scouts. So basically, I was like the leader of the leaders of the Boy Scouts, right? I think they call it a venture leader. But anyways, but in the middle of one of our leadership meetings with the church, they were talking about the families we were helping. And there was one family in particular. The father suffered from some mental health issues, couldn't hold a job. The mom was a bus driver. I mean, you can imagine it wasn't a very, very high income family. And the sad thing is, again, from a very small town, and they lived in an area of the town that I had never heard of. I mean, it was just, that's how remote it was.
Really?
Yeah, it was really crazy. And of course, they were talking about the things they were helping them up. And one of the things that came up was the kids didn't have any beds. And I remember I was like, wait, did I just hear that right? They got beds, right? They're something. And like, no, they sleep on the floor. And I instantly, it hit me like a 2x4. I was like, wait a minute. I said, here's a great opportunity for my Boy Scouts to get out from behind a screen, get an Xbox controller out of their hands. Let's put a drill and a sander in it. And let's teach them something, as well as solve this problem, right? And so, as a Boy Scout leader or just a father of a teenage nowadays, to try to find an activity that's meaningful and fun and that doesn't involve a screen or a sport is not an easy thing to do. So when I proposed this to the Boy Scouts, I said, hey, why don't you guys come to my house and I've got a bunk bed that I'm going to pattern this after. Let's build them a bed. It'll be fun. They kind of hem-hawed around about it. But when they finally came and we went to town on it, boy, they had so much fun. And I was hoping for that. Wasn't expecting it, hoping. And man, it was great to see these kids just light up building a bed for this family.
All right. So with that first build, and correct me if I'm wrong, unless you were doing it on the side, because I was in sales too.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, both of my brothers owned their own construction companies. My father taught them how to do construction. He tried to teach me, and then when I smacked his finger with the hammer, he would not teach me anymore. That's how I ended up in sales. Mm-hmm. So when it came to tools, I didn't have a clue.
Sure.
Were you doing stuff on the side, or did you have the tools to do it yourself?
Oh man, dang it, Rich! You asked the wrong question. You probably know the answer to this, you little sucker.
I do.
Bad thing is, here's the truth, guys. Okay, I can admit this. I wasn't a stranger to tools. Like I built my wife. She was a hairdresser, blah, blah, blah. In my third bay of my garage, I built her a room and did this. So I wasn't estranged. I'd never built furniture before.
Right. It's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did not have all of the tools. So yes, I had to borrow my wife's tools. There goes my man card.
So your wife was the builder.
Yeah, well, she actually had this framing company. Framing meaning she'd make picture frames and stuff like that. And so she did artsy fartsy type stuff. And so sorry, that might be an Idaho term. I don't know.
Oh no, I've heard it a lot.
And so dude, I had to grab her drill and some sanders she had. It was fun, and the beauty of it was just having fun with the kids, right? We had the Boy Scouts out there, and we, honestly, I probably built most of it myself, but they were helping and sanding and just enjoying it, and it was great. It was a great time to help them, remind them, hey, listen, think about your own time or your own bedroom, if you didn't have a bed, if you'd be sleeping on the hard floor, not just a night or two, I mean, every night. Think about that, and so I try to help them remember what we're doing. And, I think it really sunk in. I still had some Boy Scouts years later come up and say that was one of the funnest things they've ever done. And the funny, sad, I don't know, part of the story was I didn't get to go on the delivery when we delivered the beds. My garage was a mess because we sanded and had wood everywhere, and so I had to clean my garage. But the boys took their parents and the other scout leaders, and they went and delivered this bed. And so next day in church, they were telling me how neat of an experience it was. These kids and the family and how they're grateful and the conditions that the kids were sleeping in. And I was just like, man, I was, did all the work and didn't get the reward, that part of it anyways. I was a little bummed but I was happy. Right. I mean, and the biggest thing is at the time, Rich, and I don't know if I'd imagine people go through kind of midlife crisis. That's why they have the term. And I don't know what I was going through other than, I had a great job. I didn't hate my job, right? I loved my job and I had a great family and I was coaching and I was doing activities, but there was just something, I don't know, you hit maybe this period in your
something was missing.
Something's missing. And I couldn't, I'm a preparer, I'm a planner, I'm an entrepreneur. So I want to make sure I'm thinking ahead and trying to get things ready. And, you're coaching, you're preparing. And I just couldn't figure out what it was. And some of it was going through a little bit of a faith crisis. Who am I? What do I believe? What is this life about? You start asking these questions when you get in your mid 30s and at least I did. And just didn't have a lot of great answers. And when I built that bed with those kids, and I'd done service projects before, but there was just something about that. And it really just filled my soul. Right. And so when I heard these stories about delivering this bed and how amazing it was, I was at home and it's Christmas time. I'm at home and I'm kind of, you got to get back into your routine, right? So I'm back into this, I could feel this hole being created again and kind of getting it down the dumps and blah, 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 and then this stinking Xbox controller or Xbox game commercial comes on and, I'm just looking at my kids going, don't you freaking dare. Don't you dare. And of course, like every parent knows, here comes the ask. And it was a perfect time because, again, here I was falling back down into this whatever depression. It wasn't depression. I don't know what you call it, but just this hole that I was feeling. I didn't want to go back into
seasonal depression is basically what it is.
Yeah. It was something that had been striking me for a few years. I had this amazing moment. And then now my kids are talking about presents. They know I'm not going to buy them, right? I can't afford that. And it just hit me. I said, you know what? Gosh dang it. Here's an opportunity that I could take advantage of teaching my kids the same thing I just taught to my Boy Scouts. I just got to get my butt off the couch. I just got to get it off the couch, and people that suffer from depression or are down in the dumps, that is sometimes the hardest step, right? Just getting your butt off the couch, dropping those 3 inches from get your feet on the floor. And I remember I popped up and started walking to the garage, and everybody's like, Dad, where are you going? And I said, you know what? We got leftover wood. I'm going to build another bed, and gosh dang it, you're going to come and help me. And so,
I love it.
And my kids at the time were 10 and 6 and I think 1.
Right.
So my 10, 6-year-old, they came out and we had the best time. I mean, my daughter's out there in the garage drilling,
family bonding, man.
Wearing a little tutu. Oh yeah, it was great. They had a great time. And then when we were done, here I had another bunk bed. I had no idea what to do with it. I mean,
so Sleep in Heavenly Peace wasn't even born yet.
Oh no.
Okay.
I had only heard of this child that was in my church group here.
Right.
It's the only child I knew that didn't have a bed. I mean, I didn't realize the child bedlessness, although not a real word, is a huge and real problem nowadays. And it represents greater than 3% of the total population. Yeah. You think if you're in a town of 100,000 people, which, our surrounding areas, when you combine them, are pretty close to that here in Idaho. That's 3,000 kids. 3,000 kids that are on the floor. Oh yeah, it's a ton.
That's too many.
It's way too many. And so
one is too many.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so here we were, built this bed, didn't know what to do with it. someone says, hey, why don't you throw that on Facebook and, one of these buy, sell, trade groups. And I don't know, I wasn't a Facebook guy. I posted all my pictures of my sturgeon I'd catch and stuff like that, but that's about it. So all of a sudden between my fishing posts, here's this one little post that says, hey, me and my family as a family Christmas project wanted to build a bed for a child that didn't have one. So if you know of a child, please let me know. I'm not a carpenter, but I did my best and we'd like to give it to him for Christmas. And as a free bed. And I was worried that, I was going to get every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wanted a free bed to jump on there and ask for one. And we got a little bit of that, but honestly, two things happened. Number one, I started hearing and reading the stories of actual kids that were sleeping on the floor and the conditions that they were in. And then the second thing was I had friends that I hadn't talked to for 20, 25 years, people coming out of the work, people I had never even met were like, this is amazing. How can I help?
Wow.
And I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people out here that, can you imagine if we just got together, we could really do some damage here, And so one of my friends, she was helping a family. She's a social worker. So she was helping this family come out of homelessness. And this is my Haley story. So Haley and her mom were homeless. Haley had been sleeping in the backseat of her mom's car since she was born, 6 years old. 6 years old, never had a bed, never had a pillow. Right. And they finally get a home. And I said, perfect. This is the exact situation that I wanted me and my family to be able to build a bed for. Right. Yeah. So we go out to this town called Burley and we go into the home of Haley and her mom. And you can imagine, I've seen poverty before. I've seen homelessness. I've seen transitioning homelessness, all this stuff, but I'd never seen it through the eyes of a child before. And that really hit me hard. I mean, my gosh, this little 6-year-old, number one, you couldn't tell that she was in poverty because she got a house. She was so happy. And she had a room, right? She had a bedroom. And it's funny, you mentioned I was on the way I heard it with Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
Mike, I know Mike pretty well. And he said, Luke, he says, I've been thinking about you. And when you talk about kids and bedrooms, if they don't have a bed in it, then it's just a room.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh my gosh, Mike, that's right. You're right. It's just a room. And like no different than the dining room and the kitchen. It's just a room until you put a bed in it, right? It really shapes the room. And that's when I walked into Haley's room. That's what you felt. It was just a room. It was 4 walls, closet, tears in the carpets, holes in the walls. As you can imagine, just wasn't the greatest place. And no furniture, nothing. The only thing, and this really got to me, and I want all your listeners just to kind of walk with me as we go through this room. You walk in this room, and in the corner, there's this pile of clothes. And you instantly know what that is. And I'm telling you, Rich, man, it hit me so hard. I looked and said, you got to be kidding me. This little girl comes home from school. She takes her clothes off, puts her pajamas on, and sleeps on her school clothes. And then in the morning, reverses the cycle. I'm like, no way. You can read about this stuff. You can even hear about it or maybe watch video on it. But until
big difference when you see it.
Until you're in the room and you see this little girl and you instantly start seeing and this life that she's living. And then you start comparing that to your own kids. And what would that be like? Oh man, it just hit me so hard. And so we were really excited to bring this bed into this room now and make it a bedroom. And the minute Haley started to realize what we had brought in, and as we're putting the pieces together to the bed, she just blew up. I mean, just hugged us, hugged the bed, kissed the bed. I'd never seen that before. And if that wasn't enough, you're already on the floor about ready to die. So great. You look up and, oh man, here's this single mom. Again, I'm raised by a single mom. I get it. Like I remember when I wanted to go to football camp, quarterback camp, cost $100. That was it. Of course, back then it's,
back then now a lot more
than it is now.
Yeah.
And I remember I just wanted to go, and my mom's like, we kind of got in a fight about it, right? Well, an hour later she comes down. She's like, I don't know what we're going to eat tomorrow, but here's your $100. I mean, it's just that I just understand the struggle that these single parents go through. And here I am.
Yeah. And as kids, we don't realize.
No,
that.
Of course not. Yeah. Not till you have your own kids. Right. And here I am looking at this mom, just 6 years of tears just pouring down this lady's face. God, and they were tears of joy, just, and I'll tell you that, Rich, right then I knew this is more than just a bed. This is more than just a good night's sleep, right? This is for the mom. This is for the siblings. This is for the family, and we teach our chapter presidents, keep some beds on the side, because foster care situations pop up, where if they don't have beds, they don't go into the home. And sometimes these are two kids, the parents are gone. I've had this example happen to me. Two kids, parents are gone, grandparents live back east, can't take them. The only two people they know in their life is each other, 6 and 7 years old. And they're going into a foster care family, but the foster care can't afford 2 beds. And the judge says, look, you got 24 hours to get another bed, or we're going to have to separate these two. I mean, those are the conditions. That's why I said it's more than just a bed. We're able to supply a bed and hold those. So when we got done after our first delivery, we had about a half-hour drive home, me and my buddy, and we didn't say a word. I mean, it was just that powerful, right? That much emotion. And I remember just thinking, here I am, I'm a typical Idaho farm kid, love to hunt and fish and watch college football on Saturdays and, spend your weekend outside. And I remember that changed in an instant. It changed in an instant. I no longer really cared about that kind of stuff. And it was a big passion of mine. Now for spending a couple of hours a night for the last, few days to build a bed and solve that problem, that's well worth my time. Well worth my time.
It's a bigger passion, and it fills your heart a lot more than, say, catching that sturgeon.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, you feel like, again, it's like I didn't have a bad life. I mean, on paper, I think 99% of the population would love to have that. But for me, I just knew that there was more. I knew I could do more. And I know I could help other people more. And I really wanted to do that. So when this came about, boy, I grabbed onto it. I remember we got home from that delivery, and I finally looked at my buddy and I said, no kid is going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it. And I was serious. I mean, I was almost angry. I was almost mad, That's how passionate I was about it. And he felt the same way. He lived in Boise, which is a couple hours away. He went up there, and then we started, every year. We only built one time a year back then. So I'd build mine. I'd have my build day, and we built the next year. We built 25 or 51 beds, rather 25 bunk beds, between the two of us, and delivered them all before Santa showed up. We just had the most amazing time doing this. Yeah.
Wow. So I guess after that is when SHP was born.
Mm-hmm.
How long did it actually take you? Because you're a 501c3, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get that 501c3 status?
That's a great question. So when we were done, after that first delivery, and I said I didn't want any kids sleeping on the floor in my town. I started looking into what we can do. And I remember I went to this big orange store that we all know about and said, this is what I'm doing. I need some help. And, and they were fine. They were nice. They offered me, I think, a $25 gift card. And I'm like, buy 2 pieces of lumber. I mean, and then
now you can get 1 piece.
I went to Lowe's, and Lowe's has been our number one sponsor from the very, very beginning. Dude, the store manager looked at me and said, dude, whatever you need, I'll take 50% off anything you buy, which is amazing. I mean, it's well below their costs, right? So they really helped out. And from that, we built what would have been, we ended up building 21 beds total that Christmas season. And I remember my wife at the time says, well, you got to call this something. It's a fun Christmas project. People want to know about it. And I said, I got the best name. How about Beds for Babes? And, She looked at me, Rich, and she's like, no, try again. And I said, what's wrong with that? And I tell everybody, it's not a good Google search. Just leave that alone. No. So she's like, it's Christmas time and, Silent Night. Who doesn't love Silent Night, right? Just the ultimate Christmas song. And, of course, Sleep in Heavenly Peace. We loved it. It was just one of those phrases that told exactly what we wanted to do, right? It's just have these kids sleep in heavenly peace. And so that's what we did, and then the next year we did another build in 2013. And then after that build was done, we were already planning for the next year. I mean, it was 10 months away and we're planning. And I thought, you know what? I've got a lot of companies now that are interested in donating, but we're not a nonprofit, right? So then I had to find out what that's about. And so we spent 2013 working on getting our nonprofit. So we actually became Sleep in Heavenly Peace, the nonprofit, in 2014, November 28th, 2014. And so from then on, then we were able to do these build days, we called them, with other companies. And what I found too, Rich, was, yes, there's a lot of kids that are sleeping on the floor, but I also learned that I am filled and surrounded by a community that have people that really want to give back. They just don't know how, right? They're looking for that, like I was, they're looking for that niche that really fills their heart and brings satisfaction and fulfillment to their service projects. And so when we started inviting more people to come and be a part of a build day, even though they may have never touched a drill or a sander in their life, we could come and teach them how to do it. And man, that was the avenue, that was the platform that really brought about change. And I also learned the more we delivered and the more we presented what we were doing on social media and things like that to the public, the more applications we got and the more stories I got and the more I read. And I just like, oh my gosh, this is a much bigger issue. This is not going to be solved by one dude from Idaho, right? This needs to be something that our community needs to get behind. So, through the next couple of years, we started forming and shaping what we, kind of like a franchise, but a really a template that everyday schmoes like me could learn how to do what we do and do it successfully in their own hometown, right? And so the foundation of the growth of Sleep in Heavenly Peace started to form. And so in 2017, kind of a funny thing happened. You can imagine this took a lot of my time and at my own job that I was doing full time, I was the executive vice president over sales and marketing. I was going to buy the business from the owner. And so I had all these things in place. My career was set, but all of a sudden I was spending a lot of time, not business hours per se, but a lot of my vacation time and whatnot, trying to fit in Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And it just got to the point where, the owner's like, hey, listen, you're spending a lot of time doing this. And I'm very grateful that he saw that in me because it forced me to make a decision. It was a hard decision. Do I quit my job and do SHP full time, hoping I can find, some suitable income? Or do I just stop SHP and do what we all do, which is, go to work and provide. And it was a hard decision, but then it wasn't a hard decision. I already knew what we were going to do. And that was
somebody was speaking to you.
Oh yeah. Well, and I had a lot of good backing, a lot of my wife at the time, my family, my friends, they're like, we can do this. And I was luckily, when I quit my job to do SHP full time, I got hired on a couple months later by another company that really supported me, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for, and I would have had a hard time paying bills if it wasn't for that company, So here we were quitting my job in 2017, and we had grown to about 7 chapters nationwide. Hartford, Maryland was one of them,
Wow.
And so we were super excited.
You grew pretty fast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we hit this, we were putting on a chapter about a month, every other month or so. And then something happened. And this is when Mike Rowe shows up. So Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs guy, he's doing this Facebook watch series on Facebook called Returning the Favor. He comes to Twin Falls. He highlights SHP and me and then gives us a warehouse that we can use for free for 4 years, which was awesome, right? That really helped us locally. But what it did for us, it was a megaphone announcing to the whole nation what Sleep in Heavenly Peace was about.
Yes.
And we went.
That's how I found out.
Oh, really? Yeah. Right on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, Mike's from here, so I had to watch everything he was doing.
Heck yeah.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. Ever been caught off guard by a sudden heat wave or cold front? We've all been there. That's why I'm excited about our sponsor for this episode, EcoCool HVAC. Veteran-owned and rooted in Harford County, EcoCool HVAC is your go-to solution for all things heating and cooling. Whether you're battling summer's heat or winter's chill, they've got you covered with their top-notch heating and air conditioning services, and even pool heating solutions. Stephen Crodell and his qualified team ensure rapid response and meticulous attention to detail. It's not just about providing a service. It's about caring for the community. Their motto, when you call, they care, and they're there. If you need professional, reliable HVAC assistance, dial EcoCool HVAC at 443-324-9714. Again, that's 443-324-9714, or visit ecocoolhvac.com. Again, that's ecocoolhvac.com. Here's to comfort all year round, thanks to EcoCool HVAC.
So we went from that 7 chapters to the very next year, February of 2019, a year after that thing aired, to over 150 chapters. And now we've trained over 400 chapters. We're in almost every single state, 4 countries. Last year, we built and delivered 75,000 beds. This year we're shooting for 90. If we're not over 300,000, we're knocking on the door there.
Yeah.
And so it was just a huge growth. And I'm really grateful that, it took a long time. It took 7 years to get to that point. And even then when it hit, my gosh, it was such a tidal wave. We were scrambling. COVID slowed everybody down, which we were kind of grateful for because we were expanding.
Gives you a chance to catch up.
Oh yeah, we had to catch our software and our programs and all these things that nonprofits need to know. I never ran a nonprofit, so we were learning as we go. Building this plane while we fly it, and I'm really grateful for that. Now I even now coach and consult with nonprofits that are trying to grow because of those things, those potholes that we went through and how we navigated it and how we grew. We've got the best people in Sleep and Emily Peace with the biggest hearts, and that's really what has made us super successful.
I want to go back. The first girl's name was Haley, right?
Yeah, Haley. Mm-hmm. Her name's really not Haley.
Well, yeah. I know. All right, but has she, her, or anybody else that you have built beds for, have them and their parents actually turned around and helped you now?
Oh, absolutely. It's
that's what I love about it.
Oh yeah. I haven't tracked down Haley. Back then we didn't keep records really at all. It was right. It was nothing more than just a family Christmas project. So I hope someday I get a run into her again. Oh, absolutely. We encourage our families, and quite often there's a lot of them that do come back and help build beds, and we have chapters that if you need a bed, come over to our build day and we'll build you your bed. A lot of fun things, activities that happen, before and after deliveries and things of that nature. We have surveys that we take of, what's your conditions of your sleeping and not just sleep, attitude, grades in school, all this stuff versus, 30, 60, 90 days later, what does it look like now? And it's massive improvements. These kids, they don't have a bed in their room. They can't have sleepovers. They feel embarrassed when kids come. I mean, there's so much stacked on the simple fact that they don't have a bed, that when you provide one and when you bring it to these kids and they see it and we tell them, hey, this is your bed. A lot of times these kids don't have anything, right? This is your bed.
Oh yeah.
Parents, it's yours. Man, it's just such a neat thing to see these kids light up.
Oh, it is. And the thing, I remember when Karen posted some of the videos of the beds that they were delivering, and it's not just the tears on the kid's face and the parents' face that's getting it's the people that are delivering the beds and building it too. How big it, how hard it hits. Well, I don't want to say hard. How big it hits them, because it's very emotional, but at the same time, it a lot of times it's tears of joy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's why people are always going back for these build days and to help out.
Well, I remember I learned a good lesson one time. We had it was 2015, I think. We had just got this rundown POS warehouse. Sorry. But I was super excited. We finally had a warehouse. I mean, it was bad, but we had this warehouse. And I remember it was my very first public build. I put it in the newspaper, blasted on, if you want to come down and help build beds Saturday morning, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, middle of Idaho, in the middle of the winter, is not exactly the warmest place in the world. And this warehouse wasn't heated. So I'm like, yeah, come on down Saturday morning, 17 degrees outside, no heat. You're going to sweat. It's going to be awesome. I mean, how do you sell that, right? And so
people showed up though, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember there's one guy, his name's Hank, and I loved Hank. Hank comes walking in. He's like this, man, he got to have been 85 years old. I'm just an old guy, kind of, slumbering over. And my first thought was like, oh my gosh, my first public build, and I'm going to kill a guy.
Oh God.
And the cool thing is Hank, I could tell he had volunteered at places before. I mean, he's handing out these little cards that says, thank you for your service and blah, blah. I'm like, oh, this guy's done this before. So I go over to Hank and I said, hey, how you doing, man? Thank you for coming. What do you do? And he's like, well, I was a 30 plus year carpenter. And I'm like, I know where you need to go.
Whoa.
Put you on cutting, because there's one thing you can't screw up. You can't cut it wrong. Right. And so I put him on the saw, and he went to town. Well, if you've ever been to a build, picture there's 70, 80 people running around. You got stations and you're helping people and fixing this and we're teaching this. I mean, you just forget about people because you're just running like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah.
Well, the build was finally done, and it dawns on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, where's that Hank? Where's that 80-year-old guy? I don't know. I look around and there's Hank over in his station, just covered in sawdust. I mean,
wow.
His white hair matched his white shirt now because he's covered. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I went over to him like, Hank, hey, thank you. Sorry, I totally. Are you okay? And this is where I learned a lesson. He looked at me and he says, Luke, he's like, I volunteered my whole life at events. He says, never have I shown up to an event, within 5 minutes was given a job, and I didn't stop the whole time. And my first thought was like, sorry.
Wow.
My bad. And he looked at me and he goes, thank you. That was the funnest thing I've ever done. And I'm like, that right there, I learned that the happiest volunteer is the sweatiest and the dustiest. And it's because they want to feel like all of us. If we're going to take time out of our day, especially a cold, miserable day in the winter of Idaho, in the middle of a warehouse, freezing our butts off, getting sweaty and dusty and all this, I want to feel like I really contributed. And that's what Sleep in Heavenly Peace provides the volunteer. You're right. You see smiles and joy, even frustration, but good frustration on the face of these people as every piece of wood that goes by you, that you either stamp or drill or sand or do something to it, that's going to a kid. And when you think about that, man, it really brings a lot of joy, tears, gratitude to your heart.
That's one of the things that not just the kids, but even the adults, when we did the one build, one of the things that really, doing it brought them joy, but one of the things they really loved, and I think it showed that they accomplished something, was when the builds were done and they were able to go out there and brand the bed.
Oh yeah.
With the brand and iron. And which I got to give you credit, that logo. Oh God. That is one of the best logos because the H looks like the bunk bed.
You know what's funny about that, Rich? Here's the true story. I wanted to do a bunk bed with the H. I mean, how can you not? It's the perfect letter to make that happen. And the funny thing is, I was the only one in the organization that liked that idea. No one did.
Really?
I'm like, listen, I hate to say this, and I'll never use this again, but I'm going to use some executive authority and say, I don't care what you guys say. We're using the bunk bed because it's a perfect bunk bed. And, it's just turned out really good. Sleep in Heavenly Peace, SHP. I had some friends tell me that, it's funny you call it Sleep in Heavenly Peace or your acronym's SHP because growing up, him and his sister, they kind of lived in a kind of a rough house, I think, rough neighborhood and rough parents. And she said, our bed was our secret hiding place. It was our SHP. And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Beautiful. And, and the branding of the bed, the funny story, the very first year, I wanted to deliver a bed to a child, and I wanted them to know it came from the community, right? This didn't come from a store, right? This came from your community, the people you don't even know that love you and they're here to help. So my sister's pretty artsy fartsy. She made this tag, SHP, we love you, blah, blah, blah. And we like hang it on the bed, right? And I'm like, this is going to last like 3 hours and get ripped off, but it's something, right? So I was telling my buddy the next year about, I wish we could like tag these beds somehow. Well, he's a farmer. He shows up with a welded SHP, and the H, a little bit bigger than the S and the P, which I loved. Yeah, but it was just a simple stencil, right? And so we branded all our beds with this little SHP and that. So there was a lot of people's ideas that went into the logo. And it's very simple. There's, I don't know if you can see my hat. There's a little star here, and that symbolizes Christmas time. And of course the one iconic bed that, everybody knows about. And so it's, there's a lot of meaning behind the logo, a lot of special meaning. And I remember if you watched the Returning the Favor episode, I held it together pretty good, Rich, until they unveiled that logo, that sign that went on the building. I lost it because it was 7 years of working hard, doing the best I could to provide as much as we could. And this logo, much like our American flag, this logo symbolized all the volunteers, all the hard work, all the kids that we helped up until that point. And it was just really emotional time. So the logo and our mission mean a lot to me.
So did you go back and thank your wife for that logo? Because think about it, Luke. Beds and babes or beds for babes. The logo would have been kind of.
Oh, it would have been. Boy, that would have been tricky. I remember, funny story about the name too. I was sitting in an airport, Delta Sky Club, whatever, and I look over and I'm like, I was with my wife and I said, "Hey, babe, I think that's Rob Schneider over there," and she's like, "Really?" And it was during COVID, right? So Rob Schneider, you can do it, that guy, right? But he had a mask on and he was all by himself, which was kind of weird. I'm like, man, Rob Schneider, you think he'd be mugged by a bunch of people? And I'm like, that can't be him, right? Till he spoke, like I could hear him.
Then you knew it was.
Oh, I'm like, yeah. How can you miss Rob Schneider? And I'm like, so we're sitting here, talking about, I'm not going to be that guy and go over there and do that. I'm just going to. So we sat there and talked about it for 20 minutes, and I looked down, and if you've never been in the Salt Lake Airport, if you're in Terminal A and need to be in Terminal B in like 10 minutes, you ain't going to do it, right? And that's what happened. We missed our flight because we were Googling after freaking Rob Schneider. Anyways, the funny story is we went back because we had to wait another 3 hours for our next flight, and he was still there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go up to Rob Schneider. And so I went up and said, hey,
why not?
Yeah, why not? And I said, I just walked up very apprehensively, right? And I went up to him and said, hey, Mr. Schneider, look, don't want to bother you, but just want to let you know, huge fan. You remember, no one around, everybody doesn't know who he is. It's just weird, right? Huge fan, right? And dude, the nicest guy. He jumps up and he says, oh, yeah, great, blah, blah, blah. Get your wife over. We'll take a picture. But so we're taking pictures. And he's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, gotcha. I pull out this flyer and I'm like, this is what I do, right? And he was super nice. Like he took it. He talked about, some of the things that he's doing with his family and, helping kids out with college in Mexico and all this. And then we went back to our seat and he went to his and blah, blah. But I'm kind of looking over at him and he's thumbing through this brochure I gave him of Sleep and Emily Peace, just going through it. Pretty soon he stands up and starts walking over to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Oh, wow.
He comes over and says, hey, Luke. And I'm like, oh, you remembered my name. This is awesome. And he's like, you need to tell me more about this. It was so cool. And so we spent the next 20 minutes talking about it. And him and I, we've done some videos together and, we've seen him and blah, blah, blah. And the funny, where I was going with the story is he calls me, I don't know, maybe a month or two after we met. And he's like, Luke, your charity sounds like a funeral home, right? So I'm like, well, I've never thought about that, but that's all I can think about now. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stories there, and the logo just does mean a lot, right?
It's awesome.
We call it SHP magic. Some things just happen within our organization that we can't explain. I mean, there's a great example of one of our chapter presidents needed $314.72. I mean, he went down right to the penny of how much it's going to cost to get all the bedding for his beds, right?
Wow.
Well, like a week later, he goes to this convention. He sets up a booth, and you don't really make a lot of cash donations from a booth, right? You're just really raising awareness. He came home and exactly counted $314.72. I mean, it was down to the penny. Those are those little SHP magic, SHP moments that happen. I'm sure it happened in other nonprofits as well, where you're like, yeah, we're doing something right, and someone's behind this,
All right. Crazy question.
You bet.
Because just hearing, the different moments from, Karen when she was running the chapter here, and now what you're just talking about. Have you thought about actually starting a podcast for SHP and talking about those moments, getting people on?
Great question. When COVID hit, right, everything shut down. We all know that.
Right.
And Sleeping on Peace did. We can't, it's hard to go into homes and hard to get big groups together if everybody remembers. So one way that I thought, look, we need to keep the troops fired up, right? We need to keep them informed. So we started Humans Helping Humans podcast. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
We ran 2 seasons. And we'll trust me, as God is my witness, we're going to start it back up again because I loved it. And we shared all these great stories. We interviewed a lot of chapter presidents, asked them the whys they showed up, and shared their experiences with kids, volunteers. It was awesome. And we're gonna get it kicked back up. But I mean, we have maybe 20 or 30 episodes, something like that. Not a lot, but
is it still out there?
It should be. Yeah, it should be out there. We're gonna re-kick. We just actually, it's funny you bring that up. We just talked about it a month ago, and we're figuring out how to do it. Got to understand, when Sleeping in Peace, we operate very lean, right? We only have just a handful of employees. Of a huge, nationwide, global-wide nonprofit. So we operate as lean as we can. When you operate lean, a lot of people wear a lot of hats. And so, we're now growing to where we can dish some of those hats off. And with that, now we're able to concentrate a little bit more and maybe have more help with our podcasting. But it's coming back. It's coming back.
Okay, good. So something very important. Tell everybody the website and how they can go about making donations, sponsoring a build, and even requesting a bid.
You bet. So listeners out there, let me tell you something. Like if this strikes you as something that you want to help out with, something that you can get behind, or if you don't know yet, just go to our website, shpbeds.org, sleepinheavenlypeacebeds.org. And when that page comes up, it should be the page of your closest chapter. We've got a geo-track, so it should come up with your closest chapter. You come up with Maryland, right, or Hartford. Mm-hmm. And you're going to start seeing what's happening locally. You're going to see how many kids are requesting beds. You can see what they've done so far. And there's a bunch of ways that you can help. Number one, let's talk about donations. That's simple, right? Every nonprofit needs donations. But I think it's really critical, and we spend a lot of time, energy making sure that this happens. When I started a nonprofit, I did not want it to be this big, huge nonprofit where you donate money, it goes pie in the sky. You have no idea where your money went. You just hope it went to the right cause. No, I wanted to be transparent as much as possible. So when you donate $1 to Sleep in Heavenly Peace, number one, it goes, you can pick any chapter you want. Right. If you pick your local chapter, which I hope you do, 90 cents of your dollar stays in that community.
Wow.
We pull 10% because this is a business as well. We have to pay insurances and payrolls and stuff like that. But it's only 10%.
Costs, all that.
It's only 10%. Nationwide standards like 37%, by the way. So anyways, so your money stays locally. The beds that we build stay locally. We don't build beds in Hartford, Connecticut or Hartford, Maryland and ship them to Miami. They stay local. So donations are very important. And we train chapter presidents. Look, if you're in a line buying something for SHP and you have that $100 bill, that person behind you, if that person behind you gave that $100 bill, you have to ask yourself, is what am I buying right now? Would he approve of that? He or she approve of that? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the mentality we have. It's very sacred donated dollars. Number 2 is volunteer, right? Every chapter, the more core team volunteers, people that want to help out on a continuous basis, the more we have in a chapter, the more successful it is. We have some chapters that build 2,000 beds a year, right? But they've got 60, 70 people that help out on an ongoing basis. The chapters that only have 2, 3, 4 people, they struggle because it's a lot of work. So if you can spread this out, if you have time, I mean, we're talking 1-2 hours a week. It's not much, right? If you have time, find your local chapter, extend that hand of volunteership, and I promise you, you'll enjoy it. The third thing is, which might even be more important than all of them, is just help us raise awareness. Let people know this child bedlessness bull crap needs to stop, right? And we need your help to do that. Let people know that this is a thing. Our governments and civic leaders right now, nothing against them. There is nothing out there that talks about or support children that doesn't have any beds. There's no grants. There's no money.
No, there's not.
There's not. It's because it's such an unknown thing. So we need to raise awareness with that. And the last thing, if this really strikes home, and you live in an area that you don't have a chapter close by, you can start a chapter. On our website, there's a button that says "Start a Chapter." Trust me, it's work, but you work at your own pace, and
it's rewarding.
Oh, it's way rewarding, and we will not let you fail. We have a very robust training program, very robust training staff that keep and stay with you and walk you through the whole thing. When I've been training hundreds and hundreds of these chapter presidents, and I always ask people, and I want to tell your listeners this. Usually the biggest thing that's scary to start a nonprofit for anybody, especially if they've never started one, is I just don't know how to raise money. I don't know how to raise money. Yeah. And I tell chapter presidents, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly. Oh, well, too late. Rick, I say, listen, you start Sleeping on the Peace, money will be the last thing you have to worry about because the mission sells itself. It just sells itself. I remember when I was me and my buddy Jordan, we were months and months away from doing our build, but we were at lunch in the middle of a restaurant talking about, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we're excited to do this, build it, and we were just talking about Sleeping on the Peace and the deliveries we just went on. Next thing I know, there's this lady standing next to us by our queue or our table there. And she looked up, I looked up at her and I said, "Can I help you?" And she's like, "Listen, I'm sorry. I just listened to your whole conversation. I hope that's okay. Here is all the money in my wallet." And I went, "What?"
Wow.
And that right there, Rich, I realized the mission of what we do is so important. I mean, we knew it was, but to have other people realize the same realization we had, that kids sleeping on the floor beds should not be a luxury for kids. We can provide the need. We can do something about it. I call it tiny moments. Your listeners right now, we all go through these little tiny moments in life where if I just did this, or maybe I should try this, or maybe just these little moments. And oftentimes we dismiss them. We don't have time for them. They're not that big of a deal, blah, blah, blah. But I'm telling you right now, if you just act on some of those, you never know what happens. I look back 13 years ago, feet dangling over that couch, listen to my kids talk about this commercial. And it brings tears to my eyes to think, what would have done if I hadn't got off that couch? If I hadn't followed that tiny moment. Literally hundreds of thousands of kids, hundreds of thousands of volunteers, companies, there's stories of SHP saving marriages and kids' relationships. It's more than just a bed. But that came from some dude, normal schmo like me, getting off the couch and following a tiny moment. If you have those tiny moments, just follow them. Just follow them. They may not result in some big thing, but they're going to help in an area that you probably won't recognize or see, but it's going to help.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm telling you, people, get out there and take part in this. Yeah. I can't even explain how good it makes you feel.
Yeah.
It's just, I always say the Grinch, the Grinch at the end of the show, how his heart grew 10 times bigger. That's what it feels like. So, Luke, before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add?
Just that. I want your listeners to know that you can make a change in the world. I do a lot of public speaking now and get hired to speak keynote speeches. And I've kind of framed the process of how I went from point A to point B with what I call the TBF method, which is 2x4. I thought it was kind of cute. Right?
I like that.
Yeah. And it talks about transforming, building, and then flourishing, and the steps that happen within those different transition spaces, and how Sleep in Emily Peace. I saw it with Sleep in Emily Peace. I saw it with my own kids. I saw it within me. Being ready for transforming, being ready to transform myself because I want to change. I want things to be different, and then get to the build stage. Things, which is basically action, right? Things don't happen without action. And your desire to change the world, to change your life, to be different, to be the good, your desire to build, your desire to act has to be stronger than your desire to transform. So how many times we have great ideas? Man, I wish we could do this better. I wish I did this better. But if you don't act, and if that desire to act is not stronger, then it'll always be a wish. It'll always be a dream. So people focus so much on what can I do? What can and these dreams, really where the attention needs to be is on your act, your desire to act. So get yourself to a point where you're desiring to act. Sometimes it's rock bottom. I hope we don't get to that point. Don't let yourself get to rock bottom. Go and increase your desire to act on your transformation. And then you flourish. And then and flourishing is not an end point. I mean, Sleep in Emily Peace flourishes every day. We double every year. That's because the TBF framework is always in effect. It continually goes on. So, you listeners out there, you can make a change. You can make a difference in your life, in your kids' lives, in your work, in your self-improvement. You can make a change. And if this rattles your heartstrings and pulls at them, find us on our website, find a way to help a child get a bed. And when you see that, it'll change your heart.
And speaking of pulling on heartstrings, my last question for you. Can you tell us about Heather Allen and the award, the Guardian, was it the Guardian of Mission Award?
The Guardian of the Mission Award. Absolutely. So my buddy that I talk about, Jordan Allen, best friend for 40 plus years. He was the first guy, one of the first guys anyways, and he came all the way down from Boise, 2 hours away, to come and help me build beds in my garage, and him and I, we had, like any older friendship, we saw each other a couple of times a year. We'd go do a trip or talk, blah, blah.
Right.
So when he showed up on my doorstep, said, "Hey, I'm here all week to build beds with you." It was such a great thing. I mean, 2 high school buddies building beds. It was just super fun, right? And his wife would come down, and then when they started doing up there, she went up there and she was on our board. She was very instrumental on the growth and the start out of our nonprofit. And then of course, they have kids, and the mom, she just got really busy. So she had to step away, but she was very instrumental. And Jordan, he's our executive director now. You want to talk about a guy that's got a vision and heart for what we do. Him and his wife really started the concept of chapters and growth and things of that nature with our organization. And so when she stepped away, we wanted to honor her. Well, right. When it comes to nonprofits, and this is something I train and teach on, is mission creep. Mission creep can kill a nonprofit super fast, as well as other businesses. But to keep your mission pure and focused and driven and transparent is not necessarily easy to do. Heather Allen amplified what it means to stay focused on the mission, and her husband too. The Allens did a great job. So when she stepped away, her stepping away, we wanted to honor her with the best way we could, right? And to show the example of what she did for the organization, which is keep the mission pure. She guarded that mission with her life. And so the Guardian of the Mission Award, which is our highest honor, is named after Heather Allen. And we issue that to a chapter president and their co-president, oftentimes a husband and wife. We issue that once a year. And so we've had,
Wow.
I think, man, I'm trying to remember, six Guardian of the Mission awards now. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Letting her legacy continue on, even though she's stepped down.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and and all these Guardian of the Mission awards, I mean, you understand these people aren't paid. They're spending 30, 40 hours a week sometimes working on Sleeping Down the Peace. Some of them are retired. Some of them aren't, right?
Right.
But they are the perfect example of a human helping a human. And these are little humans, and these people have a heart for these little humans. These kids are in these situations not because of their choices, because of someone else's choices. So let's help make those choices, our choices, help them have a better life. And these Guardian Missions award winners, as well as so many of our chapter presidents, just have a heart for what we do, and we're super grateful for them.
Yeah, it's. I saw that as like, oh man, that is great, and it's amazing how many nonprofits or even businesses don't have an award like that or any awards.
Yeah,
and why not?
Yeah, I don't. You get busy. You get focused. And sometimes too focused. So recognition and being grateful is really at the heart of what we do. Because we recognize, and I coach nonprofits. Listen. You want you to grow your nonprofit, you're providing a service for someone, like kids. We're providing a service for kids, but you have to provide a service for your volunteers too, and a lot of nonprofits don't realize that. They're so focused on the end result, which is good. Don't get me wrong, but the people that get you there, they need to be recognized, and that process needs to be fulfilling for them, or else you're going to burn out you and yourself and your volunteers, and you're just going to have a hard time. So, recognition and bringing, our currency is the satisfaction, the fulfillment we give people for changing the lives of these little humans. And the least we can do is thank them,
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Luke, I want to thank you so much. God bless you. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And, man, you got to come back on in another 5 years when you're in.
Do it.
I mean, you're at 4 countries now.
4 countries.
5 years.
My
100 countries.
My secret goal is, we want to start in other countries. I mean, I've been talking to Ukraine and Germany and Australia and London and throughout the years, right? And we'll get there. We'll get there. We've just really felt our board, our executive team and myself as well, have felt like we want to get there. There's so many children just in our own United States that we need to get secured. We're very close to a place where, we've got this foundation planted. It's running, the structure's running amazing. All these new concepts and ways that we help chapter presidents and serve them, because there are workhorses out there. It's getting better and better, which is only opening up more opportunities for us to get to other countries, other areas, because we feel like the platform that we have, both starting chapters, being successful, is a successful platform, and one that can be mimicked very easily in other countries. And so we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, yeah, you definitely will. Luke, thanks a lot.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going.
This is Jordan Lally with the Ed Lally Foundation and the acoustic rock band Big Infinite, inviting you to a very special live music event at the Havre de Grace Opera House on May 23rd. We will be hosting not only a concert, but an experience of togetherness and connection for everyone in attendance. And all proceeds from this event go to benefit the Ed Lally Foundation's mental health and suicide prevention outreach. We would love for you to join us. For more details or to purchase tickets, visit edlallyfoundation.org or head over to the Havre de Grace Opera House website.